Good afternoon. Hi, Kim. Very nice to have you here. Can you hear me well, everybody? Okay. So let's start. Okay. Welcome you all to this session of 2020 KM Brazil Conference. With you, we have our keynote speaker here, Miss Kim Glover. I'm Renata Dalmaso. I'm an SBGC CEO and a KM specialist at Amazon, which is a defense contractor of the federal government of Brazil. With me, I will moderate this session, okay, today. And with me is Flávia Celidônio, SBGC associate, and my colleague at Amazon as well. Flávia is a journalist and a KMer, and is here to support us with your questions. So post your questions on the chat in the transmission box, okay? And also we have Victor Alves. He is supporting with the questions that are arriving in Telegram, okay? So post your questions, enjoy the session. So now a little bit about our dear keynote speaker, okay? Kim is a director of innovative learning and knowledge management at TechnipFMC, which is a global leader in the energy industry. She has a vast experience in interdisciplinary areas. And Kim is very passionate about connecting people through knowledge management and social learning to achieve business objectives. So, Kim, again, we are very, very glad to have you here. And we are very excited to see your presentation, to be enlightened by your passion about knowledge and passion of connecting us today, okay? So I now hand over to you with your presentation, 10 things you need to know about knowledge management in the digital era. Okay, Kim, the stage is yours.
I really appreciate that introduction. I do have a lot of passion for knowledge management, for Brazil, for knowledge sharing for all of you today. So I'm going to go ahead and start a slideshow and get you on the right screen. All right, so I hope you're seeing the screen that has the big display. I'm going to assume that you are, unless I hear differently, and we will just get started. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, so this talk is about 10 things you need to know about KM in the digital era. And I had a really good time putting this together, and I'm excited to be with you today. So let's just dive in and get started. So I want to make sure that you can get to know each other. I think you already are. But if you could please put your first name and your location in the chat, start talking to each other, that would be great. To ask and answer questions also in the chat. And, you know, this is a little bit of a long time. So let's all be sure to stretch and stand up and move around a little bit and not get stiff. We'll be more active in our minds as well. All through the presentation, the red light bulb means it's something you might want to Google later, something I thought you might want to look up. So Renata, I think we have an audience poll telling us who is who.
Yes, it's in Instagram. We see, I think it's running now. We see Mariana is supporting us to put in this. Mariana, are you there? Can you put the... Can you put the pool, Mariana?
Or just tell us about it. We can hit it in the Q&A section at the end of this first one if you like. But let's do that. I'm just always very interested in who the audience is that I'm speaking with. And I want to start with something that we do in our company. We start every meeting with a reminder of our core values and our foundational beliefs, even conference presentations. I chose this one today to recommend to you that you always tie your knowledge management initiative to your organization's values and culture. We believe in our culture of realizing possibilities, achieving together, and building trust. And building trust comes first, I think. Now, there's one way to increase trust and increase bonding is to share personal stories and information. It is a tried and true way to get your audience interested in you at the beginning and more likely to stay for the whole presentation. So of course I want to do that. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. We use this kind of exercise as an icebreaker at KM facilitated workshops. And this is mine from a recent first ever meeting of a new learning and KM management team. I had a new boss. So about me. At this point in my career, what I love to do is to mentor and share and inspire. And I'm really proud of the team that I work with. As a team, we've won some exciting awards. We've made a lot of mistakes along the way and learned from them. We've won the MAKE Award, the KM World 2017 Reality Award, an internal award, the Chairman's Award. And we really believe that benchmarking and knowledge transfer with other companies helps us get there. We believe in digital, we're talking about that today, and we see, and I see KM as being a way to solve business puzzles. Now a little bit about me personally. I'm married, we're a blended family. I have a bonus son, a stepson, and a biological son. I call them Bonus and Bio. This is us at the wedding of the bonus son a couple years ago. They are both Eagle Scouts. And I know you have scouting in Brazil, so you know that means a lot of hard work. I love to cook and take pictures of my food. I love to garden. I have a little blog. It's called Glover Gardens. And you would see pictures of my cooking and my garden and flowers and birds, which I love there. And also travel. This is Edinburgh Castle that just came up. What I wanted to put there was a picture of Brazil, but I haven't been there yet, and I'm not there in person today, but next time. I love to travel to the cold weather in Colorado and near the water in our little place in Mississippi. But what's really most important for me in life is that it is multifaceted and multicultural in work or in my private life. And also, you just gotta have fun. That's my son and me dancing at that wedding. I mentioned my son because he's a bossa nova or jazz musician in graduate school. And you might hear a little music from him in the middle of the session when I hope we can have a dance party to stay loose. All right, so you heard about me. I should tell you a little bit about our company. TechnipFMC is a leader in oil and gas projects, systems, services. Our clients include companies like Petrobras and ExxonMobil. And we provide expertise in 3 segments: subsea, surface, and onshore offshore. You can imagine at this company of about 37,000 people across 48 different countries, how important it is to share knowledge, just like it is in your country and company. So let's dive into what we're doing today. What we're doing is our 10 things about KM in 3 parts. The first part will be a look at our KM toolkit. The second part will be more of a digital focus. And the third part will be what is at the heart of everything, people and culture. We'll have a Q&A after each major section, and we'll have a dance party midway through, and also take a little break. So, the KM Toolkit. We believe and know actually that knowledge comes in all forms. And so does KM. You have to define KM for your organization in a way that fits your culture. So let's explore some of those definitions. I love this drawing. One of my KM gurus is Dr. Denise Bedford. She's also a friend of mine. She is amazing. She's a learning in KM academic, professor, a consultant. She has worked with the World Bank, among others, and she has also written quite a few knowledge management textbooks. You students in the audience may be studying from some of her. She which I reference often in my job. And an interesting thing to note here is that from her 10 facets, only 3 are about technology. The rest are about people in some way. I'll just point out again that there's a little red light bulb there. You may want to Google Dr. Denise Bedford and read some of her amazing writings on knowledge management. So let's look at some more definitions. I won't read these all to you. There are many definitions though, and these are some that we like. We also like to bring in social learning definitions to highlight the collaborative nature of KM and how it contributes to organizational learning. The one in red there that you see was our tagline for quite a while, helping employees find what they need and share what they know. That's what KM is. That's what it was to us. One of our benchmarking partners, Goodyear Tire and Rubber, took that slogan and made it a little better. They said it was about helping employees find what they need and share what they learn, which makes it more dynamic, and I think shows the value of benchmarking. There's another much more simple definition for knowledge management, which I would recommend that you use with executives if you're in an elevator. It's about connecting and collecting at the heart of it all. Connecting people so they can share what they know, and collecting critical knowledge and information all across the organization for reuse. Now, I'm curious to know how you define KM, and I hope a few of you, maybe all of you, will put your definition in the chat window. I can't see it right now, but I will be looking at it later, and I'm interested for you to share with each other. All right, we're going to keep moving. We're going to talk about knowledge management today at TechnipFMC. And after this slide, if everything's working properly, and I think it is, you're going to see a video, a short video about our KM program. Our statement about KM is that it is a portfolio. It's tools and solutions that empower employees all across our enterprise to collaborate and share their knowledge, to learn, to facilitate a learning culture where we thrive and realize possibilities as a people and a business. And I can see you're already seeing the video, so I'm going to be quiet.
Vídeo. All right, thank you.
That video is highlights of our KM program as it is today, our main platforms within it, and our theme and our feel. We are fun and dynamic. And our tagline is, sharing makes us smarter. So our second thing you need to know about knowledge management is that continuously expanding your toolkit will increase the value from KM. It's a great way to increase demand and to get right into the flow of work. Every expansion of your toolkit puts KM deeper in the flow of work. So our original mission for KM helped us create demand. That mission was pretty direct. We wanted to connect people, help them find what they needed, push information to them that was relevant to their jobs, always do it for business results, and then continuously improve in a cycle. What we found is that many, many more needs were requested from us. All of these thought bubbles that you see were incoming requests for the KM team after we launched knowledge management. Every one of those thought bubbles is something that we started to do for the business that drove our KM expansion. It was tremendously exciting. What I'm going to do now is to walk you through our KM expansion from when we started to last year. So in 2011, we put in place communities of practice. That was our first step into knowledge management. In 2013, 2012, we implemented a fancy search tool and taxonomy and an enterprise wiki. 2014 and 15, we expanded to our Experts Explain webinars, which are still going on today. In fact, my colleague Victor Alves, who is from Rio, manages our Experts Explain knowledge sharing webinars. We also put in place facilitated collaboration with an ideation platform. In 2016, we expanded our team and we put in place many more KM projects and services. And then we started supporting corporate initiatives with KM and change management. In 2017, our company integrated and we provided integration support, we launched a podcast, and we supported the launch of a new learning platform. And in 2019, we started putting the KM platforms into the cloud and continued integration support. I'm going to show you where the awards happened. We started winning Most Admired Knowledge Enterprise Awards in 2014. I don't tell you this to brag as much as to share a critical success factor and an engagement factor. Please apply for awards. You can win them. You're doing great things, and it will reinforce the value of knowledge management to your stakeholders. In 2016, we won the Internal Chairman's Award and also another Global Make Award. Then we merged, as I said, and we won another Global Make Award, which certainly helped to ensure that knowledge management stayed a relevant factor in the company after the big merger. We won the KM World Reality Award, as I said, and then in 2019, the Driving Change Award, an Internal Chairman's Award for learning. And I don't think it's a mistake. I just noticed this today, that the awards started coming right around the time that we started supporting corporate initiatives and the culture. You remember, we tie everything to our core values and foundational beliefs. That's a winning strategy. Well, 2020 is here. 2020 is all that stuff I showed you in our evolution and more. That's us there at the KM team as it was last October, and when we did our 2020 planning session. And you can see it's a fun group of people. Now we aren't just KM, we are innovative learning and knowledge management. So there's some more team members there, the learning solutions, that isn't pictured yet. Next time I come to your conference, I'll bring a picture of them. Thank you for that smile, Renata. It lets me know that somebody is listening. Oh, this is great. So 2020, all that and more. Benchmarking. Number 3, benchmarking will keep your toolkit and your strategy fresh, and it'll help you solve a lot of problems as well. I have to say, I organized this presentation to put the benchmarking section early on because many of the things I'm going to be talking about will reference benchmarking or came to us through benchmarking. In fact, I've already told you our benchmarking with Goodyear and how they made our tagline better. So I hope I remember to tell you all the things that we didn't invent, but we use anyway. There are lots of ways to find benchmarking partners. We can do knowledge transfer sessions company to company. I did one this morning. It was really cool. It was a global charity that has volunteer doctors that saves lives in third world countries, and they're just putting in place KM. There are events and conferences like this one, informal sharing. Feel free to call me, feel free to call Victor, and industry groups, and you're with an industry group right now. Now, I wanted to show you the results of some benchmarking, so I put out a question in LinkedIn about the value of benchmarking, and I got a lot of responses. I put it out just on the general homepage, and I put it in a group called Knowledge Management. Interestingly, though, most of the responses I got were people direct messaging me, telling me what they thought. Not so many on the post itself. Maybe some KMers are shy. I included one of the responses I got from a friend of mine, Yvonne Miles, and I'd like to read it to you if you don't mind. My time at ConocoPhillips and Phillips 66 taught me the benefits of benchmarking to pinpoint where my organization was standing out and where we could do better. Benchmarking caused me to think outside of the box and expand how I view other organizational structures. It gave me clues as to why certain things work for us just wouldn't work within other companies. One nice benefit was learning what it meant to be a leader in KM and also how to be humble. It felt good to share what we learned, and it also gave us the opportunity to let others be our teachers. That touches my heart. That's exactly how I feel about benchmarking. It helps us know when we're doing well, helps us know when we've got some stuff to learn. And I hope to learn from many of you as our relationship begins to mature after this presentation and we get connected on LinkedIn. So, there are other benchmarking opportunities. Very specifically, here you are with the SBGC KM Brazil conference. Hopefully you're connected in the WhatsApp. There's a lot of great stuff that SBGC does online, and I invite you to look at it if you haven't before. There are also LinkedIn groups, which I just mentioned. I belong to a group called the Knowledge Leaders Council, and that has been tremendously beneficial for me. It's in the US, and it's a small group, but it's my example. APQC is a reference board here in the US. You can join local groups. There's a good one here in Houston for oil and gas companies. You go to other conferences like KM World, which I do, and then there are friends. Most of the benchmarking people I'm going to mention today are my friends now. There's no barrier between work and personal when it's KM. So I invite you, all of you, get out there, speak about what you know, become an external thought leader. Do conferences like this. It doesn't hurt. Start now. Even if you're a student, don't wait. You have insights to share with the world every step on the way of your journey, and the world will pay attention, and you will learn as you go. And my friend Jim Lee, who worked at APQC for many years and other very high-level big organizations, came to visit our office once and do a benchmarking session, and he told us this phrase, "Not invented here, but we're going to do it anyway." That's a really good thing. You don't have to invent it to use it, to make it good. And the leaders who want to excel will take others' results as a challenge to themselves be better. Another thing I really like about benchmarking, and this was a point that Jim, who I just mentioned, made as well, is that it brings credibility. You can use benchmarking this way. Well, this company uses this strategy and it really works for them. That really helps if you use a company in your same industry, competitor. You could also say, well, we showed company A our wiki and they were blown away. They want another meeting, and they want to show their vice president of R&D. Or, and this has happened all across Houston and oil and gas, have an internal conference, a KM conference, but invite external guests to demonstrate their programs. It's a great way to help your leadership understand the importance of KM all across the industry. So now, Renata, right on time, we are at the Q&A for part one, the KM Toolkit. Part one was knowledge in many forms, expanding our toolkit, and benchmarking. And I sure hope there's some questions out there.
Actually, yes. Can you hear me, Kim?
Yes, I can.
Okay, no, not yet. Not yet. No questions yet. But we see, just a moment, I'm checking if there is any answer to, because we post the poll in the Telegram. Hope they are answering that. Regarding the demographics of this audience. But one thing you mentioned regarding benchmarking. Yes, sure, benchmarking is really important, and we use a lot also, like during the practical implementations of knowledge management. It's very important, really, to use benchmarks to certify, right, what we are developing. So it's very important, really. Let me check again here if it's any other questions. And when you mentioned about the 3 parts of your presentations. Also, we just had this presentation regarding the reference model for implementation at SBGC, and we had also these 3 parts that you are put here in your presentation. So it's very interesting. Okay, here we have one question here. Do you think community of practice could be used in all companies? Sometimes I feel it doesn't fit. Could you comment on that?
That's a fantastic question. I just had this conversation with one of my benchmarking partners. I can't say the name of the company, but it is a name you would all know that produces something that you eat. And they have their KM department only in R&D, and they're all in the same place, and they're co-located in a town in the U.S., and they already have the water cooler conversations and their organizational structure, and they talk to each other every day all the time. They actually are a community of practice. They're just not supported by KM platforms. In her case, I recommended don't mess with it. It's working already. But what they're doing as a sort of a de facto community of practice is working. However, I think in most companies, if you have people who are working in the same value stream, people who operate the same process, they would benefit from communities of practice. And they would benefit greatly. I believe that communities of practice are bedrock for KM, foundational and valuable in almost every way.
Good, thank you. Okay, we have another question. What has been the key product to face current COVID pandemic?
The key product, excellent. I love this question because it's going to make you stay to the end. Point 10 will show you exactly what we did with the COVID situation with KM and learning. So stick with me. I'll cover that in point 10.
Okay. We see. I think That's it.
Okay,
That's it for now.
then we can move on.
Well, just a moment. Just another one. Please tell us which tools on business management tools do you recommend?
Great question. We're moving into the tools section. So I think I will leave that. I love these questions because they're telling me that I put together the right presentation.
Yes, good. Good, that's it. And also, Kim, we have the results of the pool as well. Just a moment. Let me tell you who is here. We have 12% of the audience as student studying KM or curious, and 4% are studying or just KM curious, 24% in HR, 80% in learning communications, 16 in quality engineering or R&D, and 36% other. Okay, that's the audience we have.
Good to know. It sounds like we don't have many or any IT people,
No.
unless I forgot IT as a place. Okay. I'm glad to know this about you out there, audience. And now we move on.
Yeah.
So section 2 is our digital focus. And the first point to make here, point number 4, is that knowledge management and learning are related. They're siblings. We don't think they should be separated. Deploying them together can really help you achieve your learning ecosystem. Let me make some points about that. We did this drawing, actually I created this drawing to illustrate the various types of virtual learning and KM activities that happen in the virtual learning ecosystem. And if you look at these items, there are so many synergies between KM and learning that really should be leveraged. Whether KM and learning are in the same organization as we are at our company or not. And that's because the employee, who's the learner, as well as the knowledge sharer, they don't care who manages what, right? It should just all be in the flow of work. So we dived a little bit deeper to spell out the connections between the digital platforms that form our learning ecosystem, those 4 interrelated platforms. It is that ecosystem, as I said, and then it all starts with competencies. And because someone asked what tools are we using, we use a tool called Kahuna for competency management. Competencies help us identify what skills we need to do the work. We have formal learning curriculum that supports those competencies and the business objectives and allow employees to do self-service learning as well. If you asked about what tools we use, our iLearn platform is based on Cornerstone Learn. We have a community of practice platform called The Bridge. The business sponsors these communities of practice. They have charters, they have SMEs, and social learning happens there. As you know, if you're a KM practitioner. The Bridge is a custom application built on Office 365 technology. We also have the Well, which is our wiki, our knowledge base. It's connected with the communities of practice in the Bridge, and any employee can create a page. However, an SME has to approve a page. These wiki pages become informal learning content. This is also a custom application built on Office 365. There are connections between these systems that are really important and show the flow of social learning and KM and formal learning and competence. In the Bridge, you've got peer-to-peer learning when people ask and answer questions. We have knowledge sweeps that we can perform across the platform to collect content about a particular topic. We learned that term from our friends at Goodyear. They share best practices. There can be learning cohorts in the bridge. In the wiki, we have blended learning hubs. And I'll give you a hint, a blended learning hub was one of our answers to the COVID situation. Again, stick with me until point number 10. We have learning playlists in our learning management system and employee-created content that are referenced back and forth. So a learning playlist may include a formal course, but it also may point to something contributed by a smart employee in the wiki. This alignment of KM with corporate learning together in the same organization and the platforms connected to each other really enables that life cycle of knowledge sharing, from idea to validated best practice to training on that best practice to help people realize the skills and competencies needed to do that work. So the light bulb here, the Google It light bulb is, again, I said we learned that term knowledge sweeps from our friends at Goodyear Tire and Rubber. They have presented about it many times, and it's a fascinating thing. You should look it up and learn about it. In a moment, we have a video, and you'll recognize this drawing that I showed in a much more slick way that shows our future, a vision for the future of learning. Here we go.
The explosion of digital technologies is changing the way we work, learn, and share knowledge at TechnipFMC. With the challenging marketing conditions in oil and gas, the impetus to transform and harness digital efficiencies is even greater. By 2022, here's what a digital learning ecosystem will look like at TechnipFMC. Through the use of augmented reality, virtual reality, and other virtual strategies, we can speed up the time it takes for a new employee to understand the nature of their work, responsibilities, and the equipment they will be using. Highly realistic industry situations can test safety and compliance protocols and improve procedural execution in the event of an emergency or safety incident, all in a controlled environment. Best practices in the form of virtual handbooks and job aids are available globally and put virtual learning in the flow of work. Learning is placed at the fingertips of our employees and available on demand or led virtually by a subject matter expert located anywhere in the world. This will be accomplished by the creation of training studios set up throughout the globe. This global infrastructure will also help us with remote support. Augmented reality helps professionals to break down and visualize complex processes in an easy-to-understand format, thereby reducing the pressure on those working in the field. It can also ensure that a subject matter expert is within easy virtual reach without the costs associated with getting them there in person, ensuring problems which could spiral are addressed quickly and expertly. All of these digital strategies decrease or eliminate the need for traditional in-person classroom training and travel, reducing costs exponentially and making learning more available globally. When performing knowledge-intensive tasks or facing new problems, individuals often rely on informal networks to reduce uncertainty, generate ideas, and create and use new knowledge. Network members are connected virtually, but the learning and sharing is individualized and personal. The community is always available for questions, discoveries, and sense-making of ideas, all at the time of need. A strategy that leverages content curation as well as crowdsourced contributions from the field ensures that all sources of learning are available to the employee, what they need, when they need it, whether it's a wiki page, a network, an e-learning course, or on-demand live streaming on-the-job training. An integral part of our learning ecosystem is the ability to capture data and to track different types of learning activities across the company's entire digital landscape. Aggregated data will reveal new patterns in learning, gaps in skill sets and competencies, and learning behavior in general, allowing us to make data-driven decisions on business-critical areas with the right focus at the right time. TechnipFMC's learning ecosystem is evolving to fully leverage the rich opportunities and cost savings provided by digitalization, while facilitating a learning culture in which we thrive and realize possibilities as people and as a business.
All right. So that's our vision. We're not there yet, but we're working on it.
Excuse me, Kim, just could you please speak a bit louder? Because,
Sure.
yeah, great, thank you.
Absolutely. Is this better?
Yes, much better, thank you.
Excellent. I can project. We believe in point number 5. In fact, it's been demonstrated that digitalizing and virtualizing manual processes make it easier for people to embrace your KM program, and it helps attract new internal customers. We do this with facilitated collaboration. It's our set of services designed to crowdsource ideas and build consensus, and it's got a lot of benefits. We can help people make decisions faster. It's more inclusive because there's an anonymity feature. We can grow a culture of collaboration, reduce costs, and create efficiencies through these online sessions. Facilitated collaboration has really been a winner for us, and I'll show you some examples in a moment. But I would like to share a quote. There's an old African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We think you can go fast and far, and that's why we implemented facilitated collaboration. We have logo for facilitated collaboration like we do for the rest of our major tools. I hope you have noticed them. We have 2 components in it. Meeting Sphere, which is virtual online workshops. Participants bring their own computers to log into sessions and collectively respond to questions that have been pre-configured. Brainstorming is optimized, and we usually have outcomes within an hour or 2. Anonymity overcomes barriers to people saying what they really think. Our second one is Siga. These are both the platform names, by the way, for the person who asked what we are using, so you can look those up. Siga is an innovation and idea management tool, and it allows us to target big or small groups of people and give them business challenges and do idea jam and collect their ideas, help the wisdom of the crowd rate and rank the best ones. All of these contribute to our core values of realizing possibilities, to collaboration, ideation, achieving together, building consensus, helping make decisions, and building trust through engagement and transparency. And I'll just like to point out, as much as you can, as I said before, connect your KM program to your organization's core values. New Manager Assimilation is one example of taking an existing process virtual. We have quite a few HR attendees at this conference, and you probably do this process. Before, it was a day-long process with a lot of pre-work and a lot of post-work. But by attacking it in a facilitated collaboration strategy, we were able to reduce that by way more than half, 4 hours total for the sessions, and we can have a report the same day. The pre-work is also much, much shorter. The value proposition canvas is something that one of our team members, in fact, Victor Alves, who you have heard before, brought to us. He and some other team members translated this process, which is an important activity for R&D, or marketing, or sales, or any group that needs to have a value proposition, create a really meaningful one. It's from strategizer.com, and you may want to look it up. We've used it for our own KM value proposition, and also for others. We can do customer journey mapping with our facilitated collaboration strategy. We did a customer journey map for our own tool, Meeting Sphere, and these are the results. We can have in-person, well, not in-person today, but virtual, live benchmarking sessions if you'd like to hear more about this or anything else that we covered today. And Victor speaks Portuguese, which is a benefit. So I showed you this slide before. You'll remember, after we launched KM, we had all these new requests for all of these thought bubbles. All of these needs we supported using our digital platforms and our facilitated collaboration approach, and they helped us drive expansion of KM at our company. So now I'm going to remind you, hopefully you've been putting questions in and chats, but the very next thing we're going to do is a dance party. And you won't see me dancing online except for maybe a minute. But what you will see is a looping video about knowledge management that we call waiting room collateral. You can have that on before a virtual meeting starts and tell people what to think about knowledge management, or any kind of looping video about any topic that you want your viewers to see. I did choose some music from Sergio Mendes, a bossa nova artist I'm sure you're familiar with the Black Eyed Peas, but I did not get the right permission to use it. So at the last minute, in its place, here is some music, I think, from my son, who is also a bossa nova jazz musician. And please come back in 3 minutes, and please remember to stretch. Ready for point number 6? You can have a great digital KM program with or without a budget for lots of technology. You've got to balance careful selection of third-party software with a use what you've got mentality. I want to give you an example. At Aspen Technology, where I spent my first 12 years in KM, we didn't have a budget for KM beyond 2 salaries, mine and another person, and a SurveyMonkey account. And we had SharePoint. But what we did have was a group of highly motivated individuals in a community of practice that helped us to manage the intranet. What you're looking at on the slide is the 2012 Worldwide Intranet Challenge, Most Valuable Intranets. And Aspen Tech, without fancy technology, was #1 based on end user feedback. They did a survey of companies, and this is what our employees told that external survey. You can have great KM without a big technology budget. How do you do that? Keep an eye out for free or inexpensive tools. We've had great luck with quite a few of them. I'll give you a quick example. We used our Idea Jam tool, Spigot, to do a big project and get input from over 10,000 employees. And we then took a free tool to do sentiment analysis on that, on the feedback. And we learned about cultural differences in different geographies. That was something we hadn't predicted, but we were able to do it within a day or two because our search and taxonomy expert found a free tool. You can also use a try before you buy strategy with your software vendors. We did that with one of our tools, actually. We couldn't afford an annual license, so we said, will you just sell us a one-time use? And we did a big project, and it worked out, and therefore we got budget for not just an annual license, but a 3-year license. Another thing to do, and this is more about answering questions and solving problems than technology, go to your benchmarking partners. Benchmarking partners are how we learned how to do knowledge transfer sessions. They're like free consulting. Benchmarking partners will also tell you about their experiences with software and whether or not it's worth the investment. Take a use what you've got strategy. We use Microsoft Stream for our podcast, which is the video portion of Office 365. The podcast doesn't have a video. It does create a transcript for us, which is great, And we've done that because we haven't found the right podcast tool that costs the right amount, that has the right security. And so Microsoft Stream, which we already have because of Office 365, is working just fine. Another comment on that is that a podcast or an Experts Explain webinar, which my colleague Victor runs, is a very low-cost alternative to delivering awareness-level learning. Much less expensive than delivering an e-learning course. SurveyMonkey is another tool that we utilize quite a bit. That's the only other tool we had at Aspen Technology. And we see surveys as a gateway drug for other KM services and a great way to pull in customers. Now, if you do have a big budget, and I have at times, be careful about designing your whole KM strategy around expensive software because budgets come and budgets go. All right, point number 7. You don't have to be a data scientist to be great at KM, but you do need to be tech savvy, and you have to maintain your own digital relevance by staying on top of emerging trends. Technology is changing so rapidly, it's breathtaking. I want to know if you've heard of Ray Kurzweil. He is an author and a futurist and an inventor, and in fact he designed keyboards. My son, the bossa nova jazz musician, has a couple of Kurzweil keyboards. Well, he said, I'm going to read this to you, technology goes beyond mere tool making. It's a process of creating ever more powerful technology using the tools from the previous round of innovation. So he created this law of accelerating returns, which the rate of change in a wide variety of evolutionary systems increases exponentially. And that makes sense, doesn't it? Because every new invention uses the benefits and the inventions from the last version. So if you think about computers, the first ones were designed by engineers with pencils on paper. Now we use software to design software, and it's made by, if you have hardware, made by robots. It's changed a lot. There's a great article about the law of accelerating returns that is right here next to the light bulb from the Singularity Hub. It's one of my favorite articles about technology ever. So another thing is, how can we stay caught up? Our digital worlds are evolving so fast. This picture on the left here is from a new article from McKinsey just a couple weeks ago, talking about talent and AI and how auto machine learning is driving a radically new way of thinking. And it is changing so fast that they think it will start doing more of the work that data scientists do right now. And what we really need to do to stay competitive is to not put all resources in the high-end digital technical talent, but build up people who are willing to learn auto machine learning, and also to know the why and the what with a deep understanding of the business problem. So those SMEs will always be important. Connecting people to technology is something that KM practitioners always do. So basically, we need to keep calm and embrace this ever-changing technology. My friend and benchmarking partner at Amgen, which is a big pharmaceutical, made the same point at KM World last year. His last bullet is pulled out there in the purple. Partnering domain expertise with data science is critical. Well, who does that? The KM team member does that. We are the connectors. He also used a different AI. He called it augmenting human intelligence, which I really, really like. You can look up his presentation. So we've got to stay in the know, and there are different ways to do that. If you have Office 365, actually now it's called Microsoft 365, you can sign up for their Project Cortex newsletter. Cortex is the thing that they are doing to apply AI to your content, to present it in a whole new way in very recognizable technologies that we already have. It isn't released yet, but companies who wanted to be a part of the pilot were able to apply to do that. That's a great idea. Raise your hand and volunteer to be in the pilot if you've got a vendor that is doing that kind of thing. Also, if you're really curious, here's something I do. It's very simple. I have Google Alerts. I have a Google Alert on knowledge management. on collaboration, on innovation, on our company, TechnipFMC, and on my name, Kim Glover, because I want to know if somebody has said something out there about me that Google knows. This is Sunday's Google alert for me about knowledge management. And you'll see, interestingly, that one of the articles on Sunday makes one of the points I was making in this presentation, that you can do great KM with limited funds on a limited budget. So now we're at the end of part 2. We'll take a few minutes for Q&A if we have any, and then we'll go on to part 3.
Okay. Okay, Kim. We have a lot of questions now. Actually, some questions also from the first block that came a bit delayed. Let's see. Okay, I think I'll start with this one. This one is from Beto do Vale. Kim, today we can use lots of tools, but this doesn't necessarily bring more value. What's the trade-off between many tools and more value? How to work with knowledge of outsiders, stakeholders, like providers?
That is a fabulous question. I didn't put it in the presentation, but I heard a new phrase recently that I really like.
Good. And also, sorry, this is a combined questions with Beto and Giovanna Costa as well. Okay, sorry, just to mention.
The second part?
Yeah.
What was the second part?
Okay. How to work to get knowledge of outsiders stakeholders. With knowledge of outsider stakeholders.
Got it.
Like suppliers
So,
and yeah.
I heard a phrase lately that I really like. A fool with a tool is still a fool.
Yeah.
And all that really means is don't get a tool for a tool's sake. One of my team members called me the other day and said, there's a tool that's not very expensive. Maybe we should get it. And I said, what is the business problem we need to solve? That's the answer. The balance between more or less technology is only ever about business problems. If you have a business problem that you can't solve with your current toolkit and strategies, go find something. If the toolkit that you have is solving your business problems, wait until a driver comes, or if you see something in your research and staying on top of trends, pair that new thing with a business problem you already know about. How to get information and needs from stakeholders, ask them. Ask them.
Okay.
Voice of the customer, other ways to stay connected.
Yeah. Okay. Another one regarding knowledge and leadership council. There are two about this. One is from Marcos Araújo. What to know more about it? Or could and the other one say, could you go deeper, a bit deeper on this?
Sure. The Knowledge Leaders Council is a group of maximum 22 organizations. You can belong. You have to be recommended and approved, but I've seen many. And they don't let it get too big so that we can stay connected and not, it's different than a conference. It meets 3 times a year. You can look it up on Google and there's information there, or you can contact me afterward. I'm on the steering committee.
Good. Okay, another question from Giovanna Costa. Okay, virtual reality technologies that you present on the video, like roadmap, okay, like a roadmap for the future learning. Just a moment, sorry, just a moment. Are you developing this internally or in partnership with another companies or universities? How do you how are you developing these virtual reality technologies?
Right now, we have done several in-house. We have also worked with a partner to do a really big simulation, and we're working on our strategy for how we actually meet that vision. And I think it probably will be a combination of internal and vendors. Universities is a great idea too.
Good. Okay, there is another one regarding open innovation. One of the concepts related to innovation is the open innovation. They would like to know if there is any platform or method to manage the knowledge management with external contributors. Another one related to that.
I would say with what our company does, which is proprietary, no. With knowledge management, yes. We have used our KM platforms with many other companies in an open innovation approach to try to solve problems. We belong to many different groups, and also we're happy just to get together with other companies, because as much as we facilitate and share, we learn that much more. So yes, we definitely have a KM open innovation outlook.
Good.
Maybe one more question, Renata, and then we should move on.
Okay, one more. TechnipFMC has a beautiful track record in KM. What are the emerging KM challenges that keep you awake at night? What do you consider the new frontiers to be explored in KM? It's from Beto do Vale from Impact.
I love that question. I don't think we celebrate failure enough. Our benchmarking partners at World Vision had a fail fest and got employees to contribute their failures and what they learned from them so that other employees could also learn from them. I would like to see more of a focus on lessons learned from failure. It doesn't keep me awake at night, but it gets me up in the morning. Also, how to put learning and KM even more in the hands of the employee so they feel completely empowered and they don't ever wait for someone to push them to a learning asset or to share knowledge. They know where to go for what and when and how.
Okay.
I should move on.
Okay.
We are on the home stretch, which is a baseball term, and I'm trying not to use American terms. Sorry about that. We're on the last part, which is people and culture, my favorite part. First and foremost, KM digital solutions are about people. People are at the heart of any digital strategy because it's about making their work easier and more meaningful and their lives better. We can help make people happy at work and do more challenging work. But it takes work to create a digital strategy that addresses the real needs of real people. It is not an accident that stories, user stories, are at the heart of Agile methodology. Stories of how people would use that technology to execute their jobs. Every single feature in our wiki, in our communities of platform, practice platform, are based on a story. Personas are also really helpful in ensuring that we design with the end user, the everyday lives of our employees in mind. Our employees are very diverse. Some of them are on the vessels out at sea. Some of them are in the manufacturing plant. We have engineers and other knowledge workers in offices all across the world. They have different needs and different wants, and so our platforms have to be flexible to meet those needs. So how do we do that? We listen to internal customers. That's the most important thing we can do, listen. Fail fast and fail forward, right? They'll tell us what works. They'll tell us what doesn't work. One of our employees said in an email to me the other day that I will read to you. He said, "As I have said about the KM team before, I have been your biggest critic because I am your biggest fan." He knows we want to listen to his input and to improve because of it. This is where that term minimum viable product approach and agile methodology come in. We can listen, we can learn, we can improve. In lean thinking methodology, the idea is build, measure, learn, do it again. And Spotify says, think it, build it, ship it, tweak it. Let's get it right for our individual users, but let's not wait for it to be perfect. So what does that look like? This drawing is by one of our engineers in the Netherlands, and he did it on his own and sent it to me. It's his illustration of how the individual is connected to the collective knowledge of our whole enterprise. He or she is at their desk. They're connected to the community of practice in the field and also online in the networks in our platform that he's calling the Know-How Network. Their community is always available for them for questions, for discoveries, for ideas, just in time, just when they need it. And he or she is confident that help is available, but also knows that there's an easy way to share their own best practices and ideas. And that enables personal KM. So on personal KM, according to Harold Jarsch, it's about making the best use of individual networks and other sources of knowledge to keep up to date with the most effective thinking in our area and practice new ways of doing things. There's an exciting panel in this conference tomorrow at 2 o'clock from 2 to 3:30 about personal KM, and it is about how the individual reinforces his role as a protagonist in organizations and society. That's exciting. The individual is important. One person can make a difference. Let me give you an example. My colleague from Rio, Victor Alves, who is online here, and many of you know, didn't start out at KM in our company. He started out in engineering, but he has a passion for KM. In fact, he recently got his master's in KM, but this was years ago. So he did his online research. He found our KM platforms. He used them. He pulled together everything he could find about KM internally and externally and put it into a beautiful presentation and sent it to me, and I was amazed. And then he got permission from management in Rio to have a 2-hour workshop where he showed management and other individuals that were interested all about KM. And in 3 months, the usage of the KM platforms in the whole Brazil region went up by 30%. 30%. One person can make a difference. By the way, when that happened, I knew we would get Victor on our KM team someday. And we did. So point number 9 is you may not be multilingual, although many of you are, but you had better be multicultural. Diversity matters. I have a joke for you. So, what do you call a person who speaks 3 languages? Trilingual. What do you call a person who speaks 2 languages? Bilingual. What do you call a person who speaks 1 language? American. And that would be me. I only speak 1 language, but I hope I speak many in terms of multicultural languages and awareness. So as a follow-on to our discussion about personas and user stories, we have to remember that knowledge sharing crosses geographical and cultural boundaries. And there are so many differences in how comfortable people are in different cultures about asking questions, seeming like they don't know, giving and taking advice. Some cultures are more direct, some are more reserved. So our team all has that book that you see on the left, The Culture Map. It's a guide. There are lots of good books about this. We also have a lead in our team for cultural awareness to help us increase our understanding of cultural diversity. We don't always get it right, but we listen and we learn. The picture on the right is a spontaneous and kind of fun cultural exercise that we did at our KM 2020 planning session. It was led by my colleague Victor again. Victor is a rock star, as you might have noticed, at our workshop, as I said. And the 3 columns are different words, different nouns, in Portuguese, Spanish, and Norwegian. And it spawned a really great cultural conversation. I would recommend to have cultural conversations in any way that you can, any time that you can, if you're in a multicultural environment. And now I want to get serious for a minute. And I have to admit, I got a little choked up when I practiced this part. I'm going to try not to this time, though. The KM has to be for everyone. We have to be on the front lines for diversity, equity, inclusion, and we have to use every one of our tools and our strategies to make our workplace fair for everyone. We cannot have social inequity in our organization or our world anymore, and we have the power to help change this. We have to ensure in KM diversity in our stakeholders. We have to seek input from a diverse set of stakeholders, and our teams should be diverse. Communities of practice, which are the bedrock of KM, are a natural way to support diversity of thought, which is one of our values, by the way. Diversity of backgrounds, geographies, and cultures. Diversity matters. So now here we are at point number 10. Be ready to pivot your strategy at any time to fit the needs of the people and the culture. And this is the big lesson of 2020. I just talked about diversity with some passion. We all know what's going on across the world in 2020, and we are here to support the change that has to happen. We also know what has happened in the area of the pandemic. And what we did in Learning in KM was to put people at the center of our digital strategy and to pivot quickly when their needs changed. So in March of 2020, coronavirus showed up for us, and country after country sent employees to work from home, those who could. For many, this all virtual environment was new. Many teams were co-located, even in our company, which is definitely global. And people didn't know how to use the many virtual tools that we had beyond email and some other simple things. So we had an immediate need in conjunction with HR to mobilize our mighty workforce in a different way. So to respond to this challenge, we, the Learning in KM organization, which was newly merged, assembled a core team spanning 3 geographies, multiple time zones, and we looked at what tools do we have, what tools can we use, what best practices do we have, how can we pull them together, and we created what you see here, the Optimizing Virtual Work Hub, the go-to place for tips and tricks and tools about all of the things that you see there on the right, working from home, using Teams, delivering meetings, delivering them well, leading from a virtual standpoint, facilitated collaboration, etc. So on March 20, over just 3 days, we delivered this hub with many, many subpages and many, many learning and knowledge sharing assets to support optimizing virtual work. We also did a pivot on our editorial calendar for our Experts Explain podcasts and our, Experts Explain webinars and our Illuminate podcast to focus on the topics that were related to surviving the pandemic, working successfully from home, even staying sane in this incredibly crazy and challenging time. That's what we did to answer your question to deal with the pandemic. Okay, I have a quick bonus track. This is not one of the top 10, but I found it when I was doing my research to put this together. So I just want to show you this quickly. It will be in the slides that you get. Another benchmarking partner of mine, Denisha Klue from Nalco Champion, and I got together to talk about what are the critical success factors for KM. They're on this slide right here: process, communications, and people. It's not today's presentation, but you would recognize some of the things. I'll leave it with you again, and you'll have it in the slides. My final thought before we get to the final Q&A is something I already said. One person, that person is you. So I think we're ready for questions now. Renata, right on time.
Yes, we have a lot of questions now.
Good. Excellent.
Good. We see. Do you believe SBGC can work by demand on the companies? It's from Flavia Celidonio.
Do I believe that what can work on demand?
Knowledge management. Knowledge management can work by demand on the companies.
I do. Yes, I do. I have seen it happen. But it takes a long time to change a culture to where it's pull rather than push. You have to do a lot of pushing first, and then the pull starts to happen. But yes, I also know that it can die if you stop pushing, and I have seen it happen at many companies. And they think they have KM solved, and they let their KM team go, and it just stops.
Okay, thank you. Another one from Aline Ferrari Correios. In your opinion, is it easier to use artificial intelligence? I mean, the curators to teaching the machines, how do you see this?
I think that we've sort of learned to be a little bit scared of artificial intelligence when it's really been out there for a long time. Even spell check is artificial intelligence. So I do believe that every improvement in artificial intelligence, as long as a human is involved in deciding how to use it for business benefit, can be very, very beneficial for KM and for others. So I think one of my messages in some other conferences has been, don't be scared of it. Figure out how to embrace it. It can be very useful. An example is that sentiment analysis I was telling you about. The tool knew more about how the people felt from scanning all of their words than we could have figured out and reading it, because it was hundreds of thousands of words in 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you. Another one from Aparecida Laino. Could you tell us about the KM governance at TechnipFMC?
Yes, love that question. We have executive sponsors, our R&D senior vice president and our senior vice president of HR are our sponsors. We report in with learning. My boss reports to the senior VP of HR. Our KM governance requires a charter for community of practice. There are core teams. The wiki anyone can create a page, but it requires a subject matter expert and moderator to process that content so it's validated. And there are periodic checks. For instance, if you create a wiki page and you don't finish it and click it's finished, it'll get deleted after 30 days. And there are many, many components of the governance that support staying relevant. That's just kind of a high level, but we would be happy to share that in a one-on-one situation as well.
Okay, good. Thank you. And okay, from how to simulate this culture of failure that you've talked about. The learning from your mistakes. Mindset is very strong in a startup environment, but it's difficult to be implemented in a more traditional company. Do you have any tips about how to create this?
I do, and my tips are from my benchmarking. So my friend, the KM lead at World Vision, when they launched their first Fail Fest, it didn't do very well. It almost failed. It only had maybe 25 entries, and it's a big organization. But one of the entries, the one that won, was from the CFO, and she had made a big mistake with some kind of finance or budgeting problem. She shared her mistake. She was not ashamed, and she shared what she learned from it. And once somebody at that level was willing to show that it's okay to make mistakes, we have to learn from them, it changed everything. And their next Fail Fest was much more successful. And I have seen that as well with communities of practice. People are more willing to be free and open if they see someone at a more senior level say something true, but I don't want to say negative, but critical. They feel more empowered. The same thing happens at diversity meetings. No one wants to talk until maybe an executive says, I think we could do better. And then you really get to hear the story. So I think leadership has a lot to do with learning from failure.
Okay. Now another one from Ariela Dobozewski. From where to start? If you have no knowledge management in your company, what do you recommend? From where to start? What's the first thing you have to do?
That's a great question. I would start in two ways. I would figure out what's keeping the CEO awake at night. Where's the biggest business problem? I saw in the video this morning of the company, the charity that I worked with, their problem is sharing knowledge between surgeons on how best to teach people in the countries to do certain kinds of surgeries to save lives. In your company, it might be different. Figure out what that is and develop a strategy to help solve that problem by sharing knowledge, but not a giant strategy. Solve small pieces at a time. That's the first one thing I would do. The second thing I would do is deploy a knowledge sharing survey. I got, when I started benchmarking almost 20 years ago, a survey from someone. I thought it was Anna Steiner. Anna Steiner is on this call. It wasn't her, but she's really smart too. And we have deployed a version of that survey 4 times. When you deploy a survey and it asks questions like, how comfortable do you feel sharing your knowledge? Do you know how and where to share knowledge? Can you find what you need to, the information you need to do your job? And that survey comes back and it's not positive, that will help executives understand to invest in KM.
Lot of talking.
Okay.
Okay. So another one that I think that complements this last one is how to make people believe in GC, in knowledge management. The results are so intangible. This is from Flavia Celidonio.
I really like that question too. I love this audience. Honestly, I think people believe one heart at a time. They believe when they feel it, when they experience it, when they have had a problem solved that they couldn't get solved another way. How do you aggregate that belief to convince executives? It's a different question. But you can bring them examples, scenarios, success stories. I have a very small one. Something happened out in the field. Actually, one of our employees talked about another company's product and used the brand name, said that we used it. But you're not allowed to use that brand name. This company is very protective of their brand name. And they got in contact with us and said, you can't use that brand name. Well, we were able to search our communities of practice and find where that brand name had been used in conversations and go right to the people and say, you're not doing anything wrong that you know of, but you can't use that brand name anymore. And so we went back to the community understood. We went back to the executive and said, look, we saved you a lawsuit because we found exactly who was using the brand name and we figured out how to solve that problem. It's complicated, but it can be done.
Yeah, sure. And you know, Kim, you mentioned survey, right? It's important to put a survey in order to start, right? From where to start. We just launched a survey during this Congress. We launched a survey on regarding knowledge management in Brazil. So we would like to hear from everywhere and from everybody here in Brazil, how is the knowledge management in order to understand the maturity levels that we have and the mix of the companies from each sector, to understand how each sector goes or from different industries. So hope we really collect many responses for that survey that will give us a very interesting view on how is it in Brazil right? So it's really good.
You've got a baseline, and then you can attack it as SBGC and all these great things that you do in your conferences, and do it again in 2 years and show the impact that you made, which is how to answer that previous question about how do you show their value. Oh, I can't hear you, Renata.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I sure can.
Okay, so I think no more questions. I think I didn't, okay, this one related to stimulate culture. I think I skipped that one, right? How can we stimulate this culture of failure? Yes, we did, sorry. Sorry, I think from here, no more questions. Let's see. Victor and Flavia that are supporting me here. Do you have anything else? Apparently no, Kim. And we are right on time. Do you want to do any final considerations?
Yes. You have been an awesome moderator. This has been an awesome experience. I've heard that the translators have been awesome. And I just want to say, please connect with me on LinkedIn. And also, you can make a difference.
Thank you very much, Kim. Yes, I really like to hear that multicultural is more important than multi-language, because with our bad English, we can go far, right? We can communicate. So, thank you very much, Kim. Was a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you very much for the moderators that support me, Flávia Celidoni and Victor Alves from your team, right? And also thank you to the interpreters from Glossa. Today we have Denise and oh, I forgot the name. Let me check here. I have some tip here. Sorry about that. Felipe Pazello e Denise Cipulo. Okay, thank you for them. Okay, that's it.
High five. High five.
High five. See you all tomorrow. We start at 9 o'clock again. That's it. We will have the destiny of work. I will moderate a panel tomorrow. And so, hope you enjoyed the day today. We have 2 more with very intense, with a lot of good sessions. So, enjoy. Bye-bye.